Hi everyone and welcome to Unwind Design. My name is Kimberly. We're going to get started today. I'm going to let you know a little bit of what we have in front of us. We have our 11 by 14 size canvas long waves. Next, we have a fan. We are going to be working in layers, so you need to make sure you have a fan, or if you have an outlet nearby, a hair dryer. That always helps the process go by a lot faster. I like to personally use a hair dryer. Okay, next we have our towel, our water, and our brushes. Our brushes are going to be our large background brush, our medium square brush, a round tip brush, or and our detail brush. If you happen to have some kind of a textured brush as well, or an older brush that you might not need, that's also what we're going to be using. I usually have a textured brush nearby, but I can't seem to find it right now. So we're going to be using this background brush. Oh, here it is. Found it. So it's going to be either of these brushes. If you have a textured speckle brush that you can use for the back, that'd be great. Or if you have something more simple, that'd be cool, as long as you can mess up the tips of it a little bit. Okay. So we're going to be using these brushes on the side as well as using our other brushes that we have over here. Okay. So just as a reminder, our paint is very dry. So we need to remember to add some water. We want to add enough water where our paint becomes nice and creamy, not sticky. If it's too sticky and dry, you'll waste a lot, you'll struggle with it, and you might get a little bit frustrated at the beginning because we're trying to blend. Here you are going to want it just a little bit thicker for the trees, specifically if you want to get more of that texture. More of a thicker texture. So if you do want it a little bit softer, add more water. If it's too watery, add more paint. And if it's too sticky, add more water. Okay, so the colors we're going to be using today are going to be our primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. Our shadow and our tinting color, our shade and our tint. Okay, our shade is black, our tint is white, and our extra colors are going to be green and brown. If you want to make your own green, you can go in and mix blue and yellow together, and you'll get that color combination there as well. So it really just depends on how much paint you want to use. If you don't want to use all your blue up, go ahead and just get extra green on the side. And I like to use a very dark sap green. This picture is going to be a little bit darker. We are going to have it at night, so the color is a little bit darker as well. Okay, so we're going to get started first with our large background brush. So again, our brush is like a sponge. So when we put it in the water, all our bristles are going to really soak up that water. So we need to make sure that we squeeze all that water off of our bristles into our paint when we're mixing it. Okay, and we're going to be starting off first with our light color. Okay, I like to start off with our lightest color. We're going to come in and we are going to pick up some of that white. Again, squeeze all the water out of your brush. Make sure that your paint is nice and creamy. If it's looking see-through and too watery, then add a little bit more paint. I like to always use a side. I don't like to use all the paint at once. Okay, and we're going to start off with this white. I'm going to add just a little tiny bit of red. Okay, and I'm going to add a tiny drop of blue. So what are we doing right now? We are making a lavender color. So red and blue make purple, and when you add purple to white, you start to get a very pretty lavender color. Okay, there we go. And we're going to start off first creating our horizon line. Again, our horizon line is where our sky meets our ground. So that line that you see at a distance at the horizon is a horizon line. So we're going to cut our canvas in half, and we're going to move down just a little bit, about maybe 3 fingers. We want the top to be a lot taller than the bottom. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to begin to scrape in some of this light lavender. Our sky is dark, but we do see a hint of purple towards the bottom. And that's what we're doing right here. We are going to come back in and we're going to add a variety of colors in here as well once we have already painted in our lavender. Okay, so we're just going to go in and add some texture to that. So from here, we're going to begin to add a little bit more blue to that white, and it's going to start to create a baby blue color, okay? It's gonna erase that purple eventually, and it's gonna start to become more of a baby blue color. You see that? As we start to get to that baby blue color, we're gonna start to really intensely merge it up to that dark blue. Okay, again, I'm gonna add more of that blue into the white just to make it a little bit more of a transition. There you go. And now we're just gonna come in with our plain blue and we're gonna start to brush that in. Very quickly becomes a transition. We don't really fade it a lot. It's not gonna be a soft transition. It's gonna be a light color and then boom, it's gonna be super dark on top. So we're coming back in here. If you see that your paint starts to get a little sticky again, you need to make sure that the water is really combined. Don't feel bad. Don't feel like you have to pick up the paint and start painting with it. Make sure that it's very well blended before you go ahead and do that. Okay, so here we go. And we're starting to work with that darker blue. Look at that. And every time we go up, just to make it look cohesive, we always bring it down again, just a little bit. And I'm not pressing very hard. I'm not trying to paint very thick. I press hard at first just to release the paint. But as I start to work over it, I release my pressure and I'm basically just hanging my brush over the top to soften it up. Okay, we're gonna be going a little bit darker. So to this blue, we're gonna add just a drop of black to get it a navy blue. Okay, and that's how we're getting it darker. So we're coming on top, look at that, with that navy blue. And that's really gonna start to create a difference in color there. It's gonna look a lot darker. And again, if you go to the top, you have to come back to the bottom just a little bit to make it look like a transition so you just don't see color, color, color divided up. Instead, you get this nice gradient or fade from light to dark. If you have a thicker canvas, make sure you go in and paint the sides. If you don't want to paint them right now, you can paint them in the end. But when you paint the sides, and this picture would look really nice if it had like a black frame, if you would go in and paint the edges black, if you decide to not go with the color around. When you paint the edges, it makes it look like it's ready to hang. It makes it look more professional. It looks more like a finished product, okay? So I'm coming back in here with a little bit more of that blue and black. Look at that difference. And I'm starting to just get it a little bit darker. Okay, as it dries, you can always go back and add a layer on top of that. You just want to be careful. If your paint starts to scratch off, if you start to scrape a previous layer of paint that you had on there, you might want to let it dry a little bit more before you move on. Again, to get that soft transition, you relax your pressure and you just let your paint slide from side to side. The closer you get to the lighter color, the more softer you want to go over it with your brush. There we go. And that's how you get that really pretty transition there. All right. So mine is a little bit damp. It's actually a little bit more dry than it is wet. So we're going to go in, we're going to grab the same kind of blues that we were using. And actually, yeah, we are going to do that. So I wanted to show you a few of my brushes that I have. I like to keep some of my older brushes. And as you can see, these are really messed up. Look at these. From using them so often, these are really jacked up, and these really help me with some of the texture that I used to do what we're going to be doing right now. So these are a little bit more fluffier. They're a little bit bigger. So I like to keep them for situations like these. If you don't have that, you could go ahead and use your square brush, or you can use a textured brush. Okay, but usually I like to keep my really textured brushes and my really messed up brushes. Look at these. Oh my gosh, they've been beat up. All right, so we're going to be using these brushes to add all the cloud texture that we're going to be using, and we're going to be using it also for some of our trees. So it's going to be a great effect to be using right now. And so we're going to start off first actually with our sky here. We're going to start off with our textured brush. I'm going to start to use this bigger one right here, and we're going to pick up, let's make that mixture of our dark blue. I'm using my square brush to create that mixture. So with some of that blue, with a little bit of black, remember? And to this, we're gonna add, just to make it a little bit more cloudish, we're gonna pick up some white into that. Okay, so we don't want it to be too dark. We wanna bring it up a notch. Notice that it's still a dark color, it's not white, but it's lighter than that dark green, that dark blue, you see that? So we're gonna get it just a little bit lighter than the dark blue. And when you put those colors next to each other, you're gonna start to get the color that we're looking for. So the blend that we're looking for, okay? So here, we're coming in with a little bit of that lighter blue. See, it looks more like a cloud. We're gonna start to shape kind of a cloud here. You can also use your textured brush to spread it out. So you can even come in with your blue one. Okay, we're starting to create the idea of there being clouds in the middle. Okay, and then we're gonna bring in our bigger brush to kind of just smooth out the ends and blend it into the background. You see that? It's kind of blended into the background. It's not really sticking out that much. And we're gonna do that around. If you wanna grab even some more white and just put that on the ends to make it brighter, you can totally go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm gonna start to add some texture with these brushes to start to create the effect of there being clouds there. You see that? If you want to come back with a little bit of that dark blue, you can also tab that dark blue on top of there. And we're starting to create this effect of there being clouds. Okay, so I'm coming back in here with that white and that blue. And we're going to start to spread these out. Okay, if you want to go in there and again, soften this out if it's a little bit too much. You can come back with a little bit more of that dark blue and it'll start to look a little bit more even, a little bit more natural. So the color that we put in at first was our base, and this is going to be the rest of our color right here. Okay, so this is going to be the texture. In case we paint over it, the blue from the bottom can still shine through. Okay, so we're going to be working on the clouds, and then we'll be moving on. I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. So this is what I like to call studio time. I like to give my students some time to go in and just kind of watch me paint. I am sort of fast forwarding this part of the video. It is roughly about 4 minutes long or 3 minutes long. So you can go ahead and stop it, pause it, rewind it, and just kind of watch how I'm using my square brush to bring in the highlights on the top section wherever I want it to be the brightest. As we go out into the cloud though, we don't want to keep that bright, harsh white on there. We want to blend it out to start creating some dimension in that background. So we are going to go lightly over the top of it. If we see that we start to add too much white, we can dab a little bit more blue on there. And again, we want to just lightly press. We don't want to press very hard. Your pressure has a lot to do with the way that your cloud is going to come out. So we are going to go in and just kind of paint in again, go back and forth, trying to get a gray blue or a gray kind of like color added to create the shadow. And again, the highlights would be added on top once everything's been blended out. So again, we're going to have a few minutes for you guys to kind of watch how I'm going along and kind of have some time to do your own thing as well, to make them your own style and in your own way. All right. So after we've added that blue, we're gonna go back and make that lavender again. Look at how pretty that's looking. I love how it's looking. It's looking really nice. I'm kind of proud of it. High five to myself. All right. So grabbing a little bit of that purple. I'm gonna make some of that purple. So I'm gonna pick up some white. Remember, it was a mixture of red. And then we added blue to it to make that light lavender purple. All right, there we go. So next from that purple, I'm actually gonna wash this brush. I shouldn't have used it. It's my extra brush, but I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna use my texture brush, the one I've been using for the blue. I'm gonna wash it off, make sure that it's nice and dry. When you use it, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and dry it. We do not want any liquid on it. We are trying to get that texture on there, so we don't want any liquid on top of it. We want it to be nice and dry. And we're gonna come in with that texture. Oh, see, that's a little too wet. Let me dry it some more. All right, and we're gonna start to work some of that lavender texture up towards the top as well. See, we're gonna make it look like loose clouds as well. We're starting to work that lavender into that section down there. Okay, and we're gonna work on just making that look a little bit more natural. So we are gonna go back in there with some blue and work it in. And we're gonna go back and forth just to make sure that this looks a little bit more realistic instead of two different layers. Because right now it looks like the purple is on top of the blue and we wanna make them look like they're more combined. So we're gonna go back and I'm gonna be working on it a little bit. So real quick, once you're done with this, we're gonna go in and we're gonna make sure, we're gonna grab our square brush and we're gonna make sure that our square brush has enough water on our white. So we're gonna be adding some water to the corner of our white. You wanna make sure that your white is nice and puddly. We are gonna be making some stars. So with that white nice and puddly, you're gonna pick it up with your brush. Here we go. And you're gonna grab another brush and you're gonna just be splattering all your stars on there. Okay, the more stars, the better. This is a really full sky. Look at all those stars. Perfect. Okay, once you're done with this, you can get your detail brush to just go ahead and let me add a couple more clouds up here with this. Perfect. You're gonna come in and with your detail brush, you're gonna create a couple of falling stars. Okay, so first off, at the end, you're gonna choose any of these dots and you're just gonna pull it very slowly up. There's one. Down here, I'm gonna do another one. There's two. And I'm gonna do a longer one up here towards the back. And there we go. We have our falling stars in our sky. Okay, so from here, we're just gonna go ahead and dry this. I'm gonna give you some time and then we'll be moving on. We are gonna be using a blue. We're gonna be using a bright blue first, which is our plain blue. We're gonna be adding some water to it. We don't want it to be too watery. We do want it be a little bit sticky. And we're gonna start to make the look of trees on the bottom of our horizon line here. So we're coming in and we're just gonna dab this. I'm using my square brush. If your square brush is still too thin, mine's a little bit big, you can use your round tip, or you can use, again, a textured brush. Okay, so we're gonna come in, we're gonna start to press this blue, and we're gonna start to give it the effect using our brush sideways, as if we have some trees coming to the top there. And these are all gonna be different levels. Okay, and they don't have to be super perfect. Okay, and we're just gonna go in. We're gonna do these trees with a bright blue, and then we're gonna go in front and add some black to our blue for a navy blue to add a second layer of trees. Okay, so again, you decide how high you want these trees to be. We're not gonna make them too high. We still want them a little bit towards the bottom. Again, some of that bright blue. And then you're gonna see me coming in with my darker blue just to add a little bit more dimension. So again, I'm using my pine tree to press very lightly to create a shadow effect, some blue to my background to create those pine trees. I'm pressing very lightly with my light blue, and as I start to go forward, I'm going to go darker and darker in color. Since I want the back to be a little bit more illuminated and I want to bring attention to those clouds, I'm going to be making my blue below my sky darker. So that's what you're going to see me doing again. I'm speeding this video up. It's about 3 minutes long. You can pause at any moment to kind of take your time. As you see, I'm going a little bit darker there with my cobalt blue, and I'm moving it along. My trees are getting smaller in size as I go a little bit lower and lower in color. And I start to add a little bit of black into my blue to bring it down into a darker navy blue versus a lighter blue like the one we were using before. Always remember to blow dry your piece. Again, we are moving in layers, so in order to move on to our forward layer, we need to make sure that the one in the back is dry. So moving on from here, I am going to be moving downwards. Hopefully by now this should be nice and dry. We have our double layers, our lighter color in the back and our darker color in the front. We're going to start off first working in our grass. Then we're going to be painting in our road at the end. Okay, so we're going to start off first with our grass. We're going to grab our liner brush first, our round tip, and we are going to be picking up some green. And to this green, you can add a little bit of blue, or you can add a little bit of black, not or, I'm sorry. So we're going to pick up green. We're going to add a little bit of black to it. If you want to add a little blue, you can. Or you could even add some brown. The brown is going to make it look a little bit more olive color. And that's what we're going for. We're going for a dark green with some brown in it. Okay. So that's going to give us a dark olive green that we're looking for. Let me show you that color. Look at how dark that green is in comparison to the other. It's a little bit more on the brown side. You can't really tell, but when you apply it, you will be able to tell. So I'm coming in with that dark green. Again, green with some black and some brown. And we're going to start off outlining first where our road is. So first, we're off to the middle. We're going to curve just slightly. Okay. This is the outline, the edge line. And then we're going to curve it a little bit more. See, so that's the road right in the middle. From here, we're going to curve it out. And it's this dramatic kind of curve that we're going to get before we start to make the line straight down over here. Okay, so it is a little bit on the wider side. Same thing on the other side. We're going to curve it just slightly. It's going to be slightly curved in. And then from here, same thing. We're going to curve it, and it's going to be extremely out to this end over here. We want to make it look as if the road is coming out to us. And when it's closer to us, it's always larger. When it's farther from us, our sizes are always smaller. So I'm coming in with that dark green. I'm smoothing out these lines. So just like we did before, we're going to start off with this base, like our sky, and then we're going to go in and we're going to tap in all our extra details. Okay, so we're going to be mixing our green with our brown and black. And we're going to have our deeper background here. Again, you want to make sure that it does have enough brown in there to look olive. So we're going to come in and we're going to begin to paint this out so that we can begin and do the textures just like we did our sky. Okay, remember to come back and pick up some water. I'm using my little square brush instead of my background brush because I don't have a lot of space to cover here. So I'm using my square brush instead. If you have a lot of space still, if you're using a larger canvas, then you can go ahead and use the bigger brush if you want. Okay, next, we're going to be painting the opposite side, same color, some of that green, brown, and black. All right. So once we're done with this green, we're gonna blow dry it just a little bit, make sure that's a little damp, and we're gonna start pressing in the color. Let me dry this real quick. All right, so from here, you're gonna see that I'm gonna start to play with my colors. I'm gonna pick up one of my textured brushes, or you can use your square brush, whichever one you're more comfortable with. Okay, I'm gonna use this textured one, and I'm gonna come in with some of that black into my green. We're gonna start off with some black first, and I'm gonna start to dab that black right along the ledge here. Make it look like there's a shadow along the road. And we're gonna do the same thing on the opposite sides as well. So we're coming in and we're adding that beginning shadow. So from this section, I'm gonna begin to pick up a little bit more of the plain green, but I am gonna add just a little bit of brown in that too. So now we have green with black, and then we have green with brown. So my green with brown is gonna be right here on top, and my green with black is what I'm gonna be using as my shadows. So green with brown. You could even add just a little bit of yellow in there if you wanna make it a little bit brighter. See that? We're starting to get more of a lighter green down here. And we're just gonna start to dab that. Again, our light green is gonna be green with brown, or green with brown with a little yellow if you wanna take it up a notch. And then our shadow color is gonna be green with black. You can also add some brown in that if you'd like. So again, if you have a mushed up brush, you could use your square brush. I'm using one of my old textured brushes. Again, it's gonna be some of that green with some brown and some yellow. And my shadow spots are gonna be with some green and black. And I'm gonna be adding that after I've already added these highlights to it. Okay, I added a little bit of shadows. I also came in and just added just a tiny drop of yellow and a tiny drop of white into that lighter brown, just to create a highlight in between my shadows. Okay, so right here, I added my shadows. That was some black, okay, in there. Some black into my brown. And then into my brown, green, and yellow, I added a little bit of white, just a tiny, tiny little drop of white, not a lot. I do want it to still look dark, but that's my lighter color right there. See that? It's like a dark gray, but it's still green and light enough where we're gonna come in and just add some of those highlights here. So that when we come in and put the shadow of our trees, because our trees are gonna go lined up along the shadow line. When we put our shadow of our trees there, they'll be able to stand out against the lighter green when we put our black on there. See that? So I'm coming with just a little bit of white and yellow, still keeping my color nice and dark, but I am making it lighter than the rest of it, just so that it stands out when we put in the black. So right after we are done with this, we're gonna go in and with our round tip brush, we're just gonna grab a little bit of that light green. It's gonna be green with the brown and the yellow. And we're gonna grab a little bit of extra white in it just to make it a little bit lighter. Let me show you. So it's a green with brown and yellow, and I'm gonna add just a tad bit of white. That is way too much white. So you have to dumb it down a little bit with some of that brown and yellow. There we go. And what we're going to do with this light color is we're just going to come in and we're going to leave kind of like some dots around so it looks like there's flowers or leaves sticking out. Very subtle. We don't want it to be too bright. We want it to still look like it's in the shadows. So it's going to have to be a darker green, just a little bit lighter than what we already have there. So again, we're coming in and we're just going to leave some of these around. Not too many. You can also use your detail brush if you don't want to use the big one. You can come in with your detail brush and we're just going to add those little details as we go around. After we're done with this, I'm going to go in and I'm going to work on the road. The road is very simple. It's brown with some yellow. You can also add some white. If you want it darker, you could add some black. And we're just going to paint the center section. When we're done with that, we're going to blow dry the whole thing so we can start working on our trees that are closer to the front. And I don't know about. So we're starting off by combining some brown with some white. I'm actually adding the white into the corner with some of that brown, and I added a little bit of yellow to create a sandy effect. It is a little bit on the lighter side toward the left, and I start going towards the right. I start to make it just a little bit darker. Remember to pick up some water if you start to see that your paint is getting a little bit scratchy. You don't have to. Technically, painting with dry acrylic paint is a style that you could do, but I personally like to have my paint be nice and creamy so I can get that blended effect that you're seeing right there. So I'm going to start to grab a little bit more brown and I'm going to add that to the center of my road, continuing to pick up a little bit more of that light brown to create a neat blending effect. So again, we're going back and forth. If your paint is a little dry, remember to come back and pick up a little bit more water. If you pick up too much water, you can dry it on your paper towel. I am also adding a little bit of black into my brown to get it even darker. Just in case your paint is a little too light, black is a great alternative, or it's a great additive to make your paint just a little bit darker. Not alternative, a great additive. So I'm going in and I'm making sure to get all that edge along the right hand corner. I'm adding a little bit of black to create a shadow effect as well. Press very lightly over the top. You do want it to blend. If you press really hard, you tend to leave darker, thicker lines with harder edges. And we don't want that. We want to get that smooth, blended, airy effect. Therefore, our pressure on our brush is very light. We are also going to want our color to be lighter towards the top and then a little bit darker off towards the edges. We do want to bring attention towards our sky and where the road is leading. Therefore, we want to maintain the highest point at the top of the road. There we go. Added a little bit of yellow to create some movement and to make your eyes feel as if though they're moving towards something. You can just sort of scrape that in and then blend it towards the back. You want your lines to be a little bit more scattered as you get towards the bottom to appear as if the road is wider. And you want to have your color clustered towards the top to make it look as if it's farther. I'm also going to begin to get a little bit of black, and I'm going to begin to press that along the edges of the grass to create a shadow effect, as if the grass is casting a shadow onto the side of the road. So again, very lightly, you don't want to grab too much black. You want to make sure that it's loose in your bristles, and you just want to lightly tap it across the edges of the road to create that shadow effect. I did go over the edges of the grass again with a little bit more black, and I made sure to add enough water into my black to allow it to puddle up so that I can add some drops or splatters around the edges of the road to form a stone effect. The closer you get it to the edges, the more it'll look like you have these little pebbles laid out across the road. Okay, so again, we're adding some black around the edges here. Then I'm coming back with a little bit of black and some water, and I'm just gonna tap it to add some stones towards the end of our section here. Okay, so we wanna make it look as if we have some stones over here. Okay, so again, a little bit more of that. And we're gonna add some stones specifically on our road here. And I'm using my little brush because I don't want my dots to be super big. You use a smaller brush when you don't want the details to be so huge or the droplets to be so big. Picking up some of that black, we're gonna pick up some black and brown. Together, we're going for a dark brown. We can even have both colors on our brush if we wanted to. Okay, so we're going with that really dark, dark color, and we're gonna start off on our right-hand section. So we're coming in and we're doing one line, nice and small. Next to it, another line, and we wanna do this more black than brown. We can scrape some brown over the top if we want to. Okay, so this one's gonna be a little bit bigger. Oh, I didn't show you. Dang, my bad. So we're coming in, going up. From here, we're going back up to the middle. Next to that, we're going over and we're making a bigger line. And this one is actually gonna be our biggest one. It's gonna go all the way to the top. Okay, if your line's a little crooked, that's fine. It's gonna be covered in stuff, so you won't be able to see that. Okay, and we're bringing that all the way to the top. Look at that. Boom. Huge, huge trees. Okay. Next, we're going to get some more of that color, and we're going to move towards the back end right here. Right on the horizon line. We're going to come in and we're doing a thicker tree that also goes from being thick to being thinner as we go higher to the top. There you go. So thick to thin. And let me see on the right if we have any. Oh, and we do. So we have one over here, but over here, we're only going to see the tree itself. We're not going to see the whole thing. Okay, this one does not go all the way to the top, okay? Just as a reminder, this one just stays a little bit lower. This one does go to the top, and these next to them are a little bit smaller, okay? So you kind of have an idea of what that's going to look like. So next, we're going to go in with the same textured brush. I'm going to be using my square one, okay? And I'm going to be using this one a little bit as I get lower. But the colors we're going to be using here are going to be the same colors that we used on our grass. We're going to start off first with some black, and then we're going to go in with some of that brown, that brownish brown, so that it looks like it has a little bit of a highlight on our trees. So we're coming first with our black, and we are going to start in our back tree just a little bit, just to give it some texture. Okay, remember, because it is a tree, we have sections that go in and out, and it is a little uneven. It's not going to look super straight all the way up. There are going to be wider towards the bottom. Okay, so we're coming in. And turns out that these trees over here, oh no, it is that one, my bad. I guess there's a tree coming off of the side here that we're not really seeing either in the painting. So we're going to come in and we're just going to fill that section in. Make it look as if we have a tree coming in from the left. Just trying to understand this sample picture that we're using. There we go. So that's what's happening. We have a tree coming in from the left, and this tree is going to be all the way on top. Okay, we're still going to see the bottom bristles there. We're going to come back with a little bit more of that black, and we're going to start to form this bottom tree right here. And you know what? I'm going to add a little bit of blue to that. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. See, so I made it back into the sky again just by picking up a little bit of that white and blue. I turned it into the sky again just so that I could make it smaller. That's why I always tell you guys there's no such thing as mistakes, just happy little accidents. You guys can always go in and fix that background a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of stars up there too. That way it looks back to normal. All right, and now I'm gonna keep working on that tree. So this tree is gonna be a little bit shorter, it seems. So I'm gonna start pressing into it. And I'm gonna start creating this side dots. You see that? So we're starting to fill it in. And I'm working on the side, coming in and zigzagging it so that it looks like it all goes together. If you want to zag and pull a little bit, you can totally do that, and that'll give you a different look for your leaves. If you pull it a little bit, if you want to, again, you don't have to. You can just decide to tap if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm coming in. Okay, coming back with a little bit of that black right in the center. Awesome. And then on this back tree, we're going to do the same thing. So again, coming in. Okay, I'm coming in. I'm fixing that blue a little bit because I did go into the sky a little bit as well. So I'm fixing that, blending it into the background again. Okay. So I'm coming in with that black and I'm continuing this tree over here. Again, kind of have some sections that are coming out a little bit. So then from here, we're also going to do our right one. Our right one is a little bit higher. And then we're going to start to kind of work our way off to the sides here. Okay, so again, once we've done this, we can go in with some of that green, yellow, and some brown mixture. You can even add a drop of black. And then I'm adding some white. So I'm adding basically gray to my green and brown mixture with yellow. Okay, so it's gonna, again, bring it down a little bit, make it more dull. And I'm gonna start to press some of that green on here. See, I'm starting to give my tree a little bit more life. But again, the color was green with a little bit of yellow brown, and then I added gray to it. How do you make gray? I combined some white and some black, and I mixed that into my green. Okay, keep in mind we are wanting to go with a dull color. So you do want to make sure that it is a little bit on the darker side. This one is a little bit light. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to darken it up again. Thought it was a little bit too light. Again, if you need to go back and add some black, again, same thing on the opposite side. Okay, once we're done with our trees, we're coming back with our detail brush, and we're going to grab a little bit of our plain brown, and we're just going to scratch it up the sides of our trees here. See that? If that's a little too light, you can add just a little bit of black to that brown so that you have a dark brown, and you can scratch that over the top as well. Okay, next, we're going to be adding a little bit of that black to our detail brush, and we're actually going to be painting in the shadows of these trees. So this one, we're going to actually bring it off to the corner, and we're going to kind of bring it off to the side there. It's going to be a little bit more angled than the rest. Okay, So we have that shadow going that way. Again, it's a black. There's one shadow. Dude, that looks so cool. I love it. Whee! So happy. All right. So next, we're going to come down and we're going to do the other one. So this one is going to be a little bit cut off. This one is going to be a little bit too. And then we're going to have this one right underneath this tree specifically. And this one's going to be long all the way. Here, if you can't really see that, highlight there. So right here, I can actually add a little bit of a highlight as to why you can't really see that. Ah, too bright. There we go. And from here, we're gonna just come into the corner and we're gonna do our signature. So we're grabbing our detail brush again. Wash off this square one. And with the color that you're most comfortable with, I'm gonna pick a lighter green. I don't want it to be too light because again, this is a dark picture. So I'm coming in with a little bit of a light green. Again, not too light. There we go. And on the right hand side, we're gonna come in and do our signature. Again, make sure we have enough water there. And then you're done. Thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to check out our videos on our website, www.unwindanddesign.org, or Unwind and Design Creative Studio on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Thanks.